Hey, Sacramento soccer fans. Hey, I had to make a video of this as well because this last Tuesday, City Council had that meeting to talk about the potential of USL coming to Modesto, and everything was really great. It was a unanimous vote, and they're able to move on now with the letter of intent or LOI, as it's referred to. So it's not a guarantee. I just want to put that out there that USL will for sure be in Modesto, but this does establish that negotiation period where both the city and the USL can figure out a plan for that. Now, it'll only be for 1 year, though. It's from now to September 10th of 2025, with the possibility of extending that by another 6 months. So, we're going to keep an eye out for that. We're going to see just how it goes on during the year because I'm sure they're going to have a lot of things to talk about, and they might even have some meetings open to the public, hopefully. And I'm gonna try my best to to be at those if they actually do happen to have those. But I thought I would share with everyone what this LOI entails because there's a few items that have to be resolved here before anything moves on further. And I think it's really important to look at them because these projects can take a while. And even if they do proceed with things, this could be a project of a few years away. But hey, if it's gonna happen, I'll be happy and just seeing it happen. Doesn't matter how long we have to wait, even if it's a few years from now. Just the fact that we'll have a date in place is all that matters. But first thing is, of course, figuring out the potential location for this stadium. I could think of a few places around town, but I feel like I would prefer for it to be in downtown. And looking at other soccer stadiums, they tend to be in the downtown area, and it is just, of course, usually the busy area in your city. And for us here in downtown, I feel like it would do greatness for them because there's so many things that could happen around downtown because of a new stadium. So much like construction that could go along with that, and just existing businesses could really benefit from having that. So I would put my guess that it would probably be in downtown. And if it's not in downtown, in all likelihood, it'll probably be somewhere near the freeway. Now, I do want to share though that there have been renderings that have been done in the past. About like 3 years ago, some business leaders actually got together and actually wanted to propose a new stadium. This was initially for the Modesto Nuts because our minor league baseball team here in town, Modesto Nuts, they actually had to figure out whether they were going to renovate their existing facility, John Thurman Field, or if they were going to build a new stadium. And so they were kind of going back and forth with the city on that. Now, originally they weren't even going to come back for next year. It was super sad, but thankfully they were able to actually negotiate an extension for another year until next year to actually figure out whether again the Nuts will stay here or not. But hopefully they will. So these renderings again came about. I hope this is what ends up happening because this is a really awesome stadium for them. But ultimately, what does this mean for Modesto USL? Well, when they did these renderings, they also incorporated a potential USL team. And again, this was 3 years ago already. So you already know USL has had an interest in Modesto for quite some time. And we briefly talked about it in the past, but I mean, the past for me, it was more just of a conceptual thing, more of a dream. But now seeing this letter of intent get unanimously voted in city council on Tuesday gives us hope that they're going to, establish these conversations with them, and maybe it can actually happen. But they do have these, and the really cool thing here is that if Modesto Nuts and this Modesto USL team kind of coordinate construction costs and all that, it could really work out great. I mean, I always think that if you're going to construct something, if you can partner with another sport or all that, that could really help you, move everything in a really great fashion because both can split the cost up and all that. But not just that, but I think the only difference thing here between a baseball specific stadium like we've seen, for other USL clubs that have played there and then we'll complain about them forever, is that if you do that, they're going to keep in mind that this will be a stadium that will also serve the purpose of a soccer field, and just that you guys can see it there in the renderings. I mean, it could be actually modeled so that way a soccer stadium makes sense inside of a baseball stadium. So this would be, I think, a really smart way to actually do the construction with that and all that because they would have this in mind. But again, they need to coordinate efforts. I hope that happens. I mean, it's kind of interesting how USL, their deadline for this letter of intent is next year in September 10th, just one solid year. And also for the Modesto Nuts, it's another year there as well. So, I mean, I feel like, hey, there could be the possibility of what they were envisioning, what these business leaders who got together 3 years ago were envisioning could be a thing. I mean, the rendering's already there, and it surely looks really amazing when you look at it and all that. Because I think a lot could come from this and having something like this get started. But again, it's gonna take some time. I mean, this looks really cool and all, but getting this to happen is gonna take maybe a few years here, just to get everything all coordinated and all that. But the fact is that they have venue already in place there, and it's really awesome. Just the fact that they did these renderings and all that, and even the name Great Valley Coliseum is it's a pretty cool name too, and they even had a site specifically picked out in downtown, which I do think would be a great site. But again, I don't know all the other like information on what it would take for all that because they would have to, the deconstruct a lot of businesses that are there. I think some might not even be active anymore, but there's a lot that would entail in a project like this because it's not like it's just an empty dirt lot. So this is why I think it would take a little bit longer if they were to select this particular spot there. So again, that's an option. I just wanted to bring that up with the first bullet point there that there's something already there. But I'm sure the city will do their own research. The city will might even propose other sites there, but we'll keep an eye out for that because I think that's going to be a really big topic of discussion. Because above all, you need a stadium to play, and that's what ends up costing the most for that. So that's one thing there. And going along the lines of that too, it's the potential designs, the size of the stadium. They're gonna have to go back and forth with USL because USL will have to prove it because they have their own requirements. But speaking of requirements, they want a stadium that has a minimum seating capacity of 5,000, which with those renderings for that one actually does have a minimum capacity of 5,000. So that stadium was built in mind, or not built, I shouldn't. It looks like it was built, but not yet. But those renderings were designed in mind to actually have a capacity for 5,000 there. So keep that in mind. I think it's good that they were designed for that. But they do actually want the ability to expand to at least 10,000 seats to be an option because you never know. You're going to have high profile matches sometimes, especially if Open Cup comes to town. And so it's nice to be able to have that expansion, especially if the team does really well. Y'all know how Sac Republic was when the original Hard Park was open back in the day, back when it was Bonnie Field. Started out with a capacity, I believe it was around 8,000, and then they had sellouts every weekend, and so they were like, "Hey, let's expand this to what it is now, which is around 11,500, 600 seats now." Although I think it's probably got an increase by maybe 50 or 100 now that they've added the extra seats around the stadium, but that's something they ask for, which is great because if it does well, then you definitely should expand the stadium there. Of course, they wanted to serve as the home stadium for men's and women's professional soccer teams there, and that's another amazing thing is that this would be a project that would involve men's and women's soccer teams, and so I think, and this is just me again, I haven't heard anything, but I'm assuming that on the women's side, it would be a USLW team, which would be amazing because can y'all imagine those like Stockton Cargo against Modesto USL rivalries? I mean, that that would be great. Now, I'm sorry, Academica, because I would probably take over that rivalry. Not that, maybe they can't all three have their own rivalry, but it would just be amazing. I mean, Modesto against Academica would also be its own rivalry too. I mean, like a Stanislaus Classico of sorts and all that. But Modesto against Stockton would be epic. I mean, I already like just think it's amazing when Modesto Nuts play against the Stockton team. So it's really like cool. It would just be one more professional team there that would be establishing that rivalry and just all that. It would be great. And on the men's side, I think USL League One makes the most sense. I mean, League Two, I don't know if it's League Two. I feel like it's a lot of investment that will go along with this, so it doesn't really make too much sense for it to be League Two, in my opinion. And Championship, I think, is out of the question. I don't think it would be Championship. I don't see that, but hey, I might be wrong. Maybe it's Championship, and then I'll be super conflicted with Czech Republic and the Modesto USL team. But but in League One, I know Central Valley Fuego's there. I'm sorry, Fuego, but if Modesto makes its way to USL League One, then I'll support them when they don't play against Modesto, though. I'll say that. But if they play against Modesto, hey, Modesto's taking priority over them. But I see it being there. USL League One is a league that is still growing. Santa Barbara is going to have a team here shortly as well, but they're still lacking teams in the West. So it makes more sense that they want to grow in the West. And as I've said before, I think one day USL League One is going to have Western Conference and Eastern Conference, just like Championship does, just like even League Two does. Although League Two has the groups and just a lot more like regions and all that. But that's what I think is their next goal, and I think Modesto probably that's where they fit is USL League One for that matter there. So it makes sense with the seating capacity that they would ask for that as well. Of course, other things there too, like how the stadium will be financed, all the different things that go along with that, ownership, management, operation of the stadium, licenses, leases, easements, just all the transactions that go along with that. Also, they would take a look at any other development that would be constructed around the stadium, adjacent to it, all that there inside the stadium. They want all that information, and I don't think they would struggle too much in getting more businesses to be around there, because I think when you construct something, especially with it being a new stadium in town, this could bring a lot of businesses around there and more things going on just around that general area, which would be amazing for the city. And that's why I think the area where they proposed that in downtown that I just shared with those renderings, I think it makes sense to me, because I think that's one area in downtown where there's not really that much going on and where they could really benefit a lot from that. Um, and the last bullet point there, of course, any other costs that get involved with this, like plan studies, because they have to do their own thing like that. I mean, the renderings might be there that I just shared, but again, that wasn't done by the city. They're going to do their own thing as well. And there's costs, of course, that are associated with all that. So they want to take a look at all that is being spent on, so they can see what goes on there. But as I mentioned earlier, this letter is going to be good. This execution of it until September 10th of 2025. So there's a year of negotiation that'll go on with a potential 6-month extension that could be happening. So we'll be keeping an eye out for that. We'll see how things progress around there. But in this year exclusive negotiation period, it's called exclusive for a reason, but Modesto agrees to not negotiate with any other soccer league outside of USL, in terms of a professional soccer, of course. And then USL agrees to not pursue any other professional team anywhere in Stanislaus and Merced counties. So there is that. That's a big part, I think, of of this LOI, is having that exclusive negotiation period, where both parties agreed to just focus on their own negotiations with themselves and not go outside of that. So all that is really awesome, but again, this is just the start. We'll see what goes on. It's going to take a while. This isn't going to be something that we're going to have in a year, 2 years, even after this like negotiation period goes on. Even if it were to only happen in like 7, 8 months and they would agree with it, it's going to take some time. I mean, it could be 2027, 2028. I'm not sure, but at the end of the day, just to know that this has been approved, that they can start negotiating, is a really great sign. I think it should keep us all optimistic, because in listening to the city council meeting, most of the city council members that spoke in it were pretty optimistic about the future of having soccer, professional soccer here in Modesto. And that's always really awesome to see that, and to see the public comment on it. Some People were also commenting there in the city council, and I'm sure they're going to have more meetings. I'm going to try and attend some of them if they do. So that way we can go out there and share our stories of the things that we're doing. I mean, here with this podcast, there's a lot that goes on, and I know that people in the area know that the sport is popular. There's a reason why USL like wants us to go USL, why they want us to join their divisions, because they know there's a lot of potential here. And I mean, we've been saying it since this podcast got started almost 4 years ago that the Central Valley has a lot of potential in soccer, and to think that a pro soccer team could make its way here to Modesto is just big news for us to be able to have teams that could visit Modesto, for us to visit other places. I mean, there's a lot of money that I think will benefit the city of Modesto and downtown and all that. That I really hope that this negotiation period goes well, that they give us news in a year, hopefully less than that. But I understand it's probably going to take even the extension period. I mean, it might be a year and a half till we actually get final news and all that, but I'm gonna keep an eye out for it. You already know, since I've been keeping an eye out for this as it's been going on. I don't know if you guys just heard that, but I got a notification that Sac Republic is playing Phoenix Rising on Saturday. Shout out to Sac Republic for having those calendar invites to to actually add to the calendar for all the games. But with that being said, y'all, thank you so much for listening or watching this video, because it's going to be on video only. But really appreciate it. Again, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't yet. And if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you find out when we post new videos and all that, or when we do live shows as well. If you're on Facebook, please follow the page, like it, so you can check out when new podcast episodes are being posted. And if you haven't yet, check us out. Check out our podcast. If it's the first time you're hearing about us, check us out, sacsoccerpod.com, or on your favorite podcast platform. And hey, I hope everyone has a good morning, good night, whenever you're watching this. And again, you'll hear me whenever we post the next podcast on State of the Republic podcast.